that going. Cool. And we are recording, I believe. Yep, there we go. So let's move on. Take care. So I can advance there. All right, so I'll formally welcome you to the Project Management Community Group's monthly meeting for May. Our topic or our feature presentation will be about project management tools, and we do have two presenters that we highlighted here, Cindy Greenspun hailing from Yale University and Dan Smith coming from Marquette University. So there you go. Cindy's going to talk about how no single tool does it all, and Dan's going to talk to us about, I think it's one plan as well. We've already talked about the Q&A session. And before I move on to the next slide, just a quick jot down this information however you like to take notes. But our next meeting will be June 17th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We do take a summer break in July, so the steering committee doesn't have to think about PMCG stuff. And then our next fall meeting will be August 18th. All righty. Here's a bio and a picture of Cindy. If you like to read a lot and you're one of those people that stops by all those historical signs when you go to public parks, then this is for you. You can read this or skim it. I'm going to move on though, because that will take some time to cover all that. And then here's Dan's bio. Cool stuff. All right. With that said, that's our committee update. So I went one slide too far. So I'm going to hand this over to you, Cindy. I believe you're the first one up. So take it away. Share the screen. Get ready to go. I'll stop my share right now.
Thank you. So I made a PowerPoint presentation because I wanted to keep myself within the 20-minute window that I'm giving and make sure that I give Dan enough time to do his presentation too. Now that I said that, let me find my PowerPoint. And I think here it is. And then I'll hit present mode. And how does it look? Did I do it? Yay, I think I did.
Yep, there you go.
Um, so, as you all know, today I'm going to tell you how we run projects, not just tools, but how they work together within Yale University. We found that not
Real,
one
real
tool.
quick, Cindy, sorry to cut in, but it looks like your presentation kicked back over to your notes view. If you're okay with it, we're okay with
Yeah.
it, but
How's that? Thank you very much.
yep.
So, I would love to be able to say that I didn't spend a lot of time doing research on the perfect project management tool, but I did. I spent hours and hours just doing research online. What is the perfect project management tool that can do everything that I want? But long story short, I found that there's just no perfect project management tool, and that I needed to change my own mindset or my own approach in the perfect tool. And instead, I'm using the M365 ecosystem to on a hybrid approach. So I cobbled together a set of M365 items, Planner or Planner Premium. They're two separate applications, SharePoint, Loop, and Team. So I use Planner or Planner Premium for task and timeline management. We also use it for dependency, issue tracking, decision logs. It's very robust. And I don't know how many of you know this, but Planner Premium is intended to replace Microsoft Project Online, which is going away in August or September. So a lot of the features that was available in Microsoft Project Online, you'll see it in Planner Premium. Loop is a note-taking app that's part of the M365 ecosystem. Team is similar to Slack, and you can use it for communications and or meetings or both. And then SharePoint is what I refer to as a document depository. So we set up an ecosystem that would allow us to use all of these different sets of apps or tools collaboratively. So let me go to the next slide. For some reason, hitting enter is not working. Oh, there we go. Let me make sure. So I ended up finding that people, when I say, hey, let's use Planner, let's use Team, let's use SharePoint, it uh, um, appears fragmented at first, but it really is not fragmented. If you put them in a nice, neat package and apply project governance, it will make the work coherent to the end user. How the tools work together, um, if there's a task, you can track that in Planner or Planner Premium. If there's conversations that need to happen, you can use Teams or Loop. Any decision that's made, log it into Planner, decision log. If you have documentation that's related to the project, upload it into SharePoint. The benefit of this model is that it provides flexibility, it provides transparency, it reduces duplication, you have opportunity for decision tracking, project tracking, and then scalable governance. Here's an example of a project governance, and this is a copy of a loop page for one project that I'm currently working on. Before the project started, I started in Loop and created something that I call a ready reference page and consolidated all of the different tools in the M365 ecosystem with links so that people have a one-stop shop. Basically, come here for the ready reference and this takes you where you need to go for the project. This document ended up being so handy and helpful that the page, if you scroll down this page, I'm not going to, but you can see the bottom half of it, that we started adding link to the technical spaces. It's an IT project. So we provided link to where the user acceptance testing spaces, where the test environment is, and then production. And the page is very long and it has all these like really useful links or guidance. Moving on, I wanted to also show another screenshot of the menu sidebar that we have that shows the structure for the project in Loop. Here's the screenshot of Planner and Planner Premium in action. This is a grid view of a current project, the very one project that I keep mentioning, that shows you all of the task items in a grid view. Working your way down, you can see who has ownership of that item, the timeline associated with that task. You can see dependencies and more. This is the same project that I'm referring to, but in timeline view. Again, the same project, but in board view. So what's lovely about Planner Premium is that you can switch and pivot from view to view depending on how you prefer to work. I have people who are visual, they just want to work in board view. So they just work within their bucket and do their work. I have those on the technical team who prefer grid view, and they like to be able to like see what task that they have to work on, next. I if you take a look at the README bucket on the far most left in the screenshot, I'm big on providing guidance on how you use this plan. So the first card will talk about how we want documentation and how we interface with one another. The second card is a copy. How do you use it? And then the third card down shows all of the labels that we have. And if you open up that card, it will provide guidance on how those labels are used. Moving on to the next screen. It's another example. This is the project portfolio that I have that shows all of the discretionary work that we have going on, all of the mandatory work, and then discretionary and mandatory specific to library IT. So the third or fourth bucket that you see in blue is non-IT related work, but I like to track them because of the resource allocation that might be required for staff within library IT. And then that last bucket, whenever I hear about projects coming down the pipeline, I like to informally capture that so that I can keep an eye on that and provide updates as needed. The planner is robust in that you can set up templates in advance and then invite people to make a copy of that plan and utilize it for their own project or set of work. And this is an example of a template set up in Canva and Style. You on the left image, that's the template of what the board looks like. And then the image that you're looking at on the right-hand side, I opened up that card in the README bucket, and it shows you step by step on how to use that board. The next screenshot is an example of a Scrum board. Again, another template. We have one for waterfall, which I'm not going to share. And one thing that I like to talk to staff about is when you're working in Planner, you may not realize that you can kind of adopt the work breakdown structure and apply that into your plan. So the buckets that I was just talking about, consider those your deliverables. The task, when you open up a card, consider them your work packages. The checklist that you have in the card and planner, consider that your task breakdown. And then we have ownership, and then we have schedule. And the T. One thing that beneficial to us is that I've been tinkering with AI, so Copilot, which is part of the M365 suite, and I've been producing weekly reports because everything is already in the M365 structure, Loop, Planner, Team, and even our email and SharePoint. We have a very good structure in Loop that we have working groups, so you must take meeting notes. You must capture agenda. That's a non-negotiable. Pardon me. So this gives me the ability to produce weekly reports that I would share with our team, and it's been fantastic. So I'm trying to be mindful of the time for Dan to make sure that he has a chance. So this is my last slide. I purposely decided not to try to do a live demo because I'm worried about timing. But if there's anything that anybody wants to see, I'm really happy to show something live in Plan or Planner.
So I've got a couple of questions in chat, but I'm harvesting them and placing them in a separate note file so that we can ask them toward the end. So cool. With that, I say let's hand it over to Dan and let him go.
All right, I had to find that unmute button once I started sharing. Here we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about one plan and how we're using it. So One plan has different modules, and we'll be talking about that and how we integrate with our other systems here at Marquette. So here's the agenda. We used to be Project Online back for a long time. We actually started off with Project Server and then migrated to Project Online. Where operating module is kind of right now, model is one plan's a system of record, and we use Planner Premium for some projects for kind of the execution layer. Financial management was big for us. Resource capacity and is, I guess, burgeoning. We're about ready to kick that off for all of IT, and I'll talk about that later. And then we can't do any sort of presentation without talking a little bit about AI. So I'm going to touch on that. So who we are. So we're an ITS PMO. We have 5 full-time PMs with a BA that report up to me. And then facilities also has their own project managers. They have 4 full-time PMs and architects. Right now, the IT portfolio is about 102 projects spread across those 5 people, plus I have a couple myself. And yes, that's too many per project manager. That's just the way life is right now. And our budget right now is roughly 12.3 million that we're managing. So why we move? So as mentioned earlier, Project Online is going into support in this October. So we saw that coming and decided to start looking about a year and a half ago. We also had augmented Project Online with UMT 360 for the budget functionality that provided, and that was really pretty expensive. And with the current state of things in higher ed and Marquette in particular, we needed to cut costs, and we were able to do that by moving to UMT. We did an implementation in about 5 months. One thing that helped us is we did not move any completed projects. So all the history is staying in the Project Online environment. And so that will be going away in October, but we've had it for this period of time. And I've referenced it a handful of times, but I don't think it's worth moving at this point. And any projects that were in progress at the time, we actually manually recreated those into one plan. So our methodology and process. So what we needed our new tool to do was track budget info. So facilities, PMs and ITS PMs both use one plan. We have separate modules for that. But any projects we submit has to go through the budget office for their approval before we can go into execution on them. And they look at the budget and where the money's coming from and all that kind of good stuff. We want to track resource capacity. We're doing that with our project managers today, and we will be shortly rolling that out broader within IT. As Cindy kind of alluded to, we're using a kind of a hybrid methodology. And I thought this graphic here from PMI, their DA framework, kind of explains it really well graphically about what hybrid really means. And, you know, hybrid means something different to everybody, it seems. Another thing we do for our projects, or ones in the execution stage anyway, we send out weekly status reports. And so we wanted something that would hopefully make that a little bit easier. We want to minimize project artifacts that are outside of the PPM system. In other words, we want to house everything in one spot as much as we can. And we needed a system that support project intakes. We have a call for university-wide minor capital projects every year. And in the previous years, we used Project Online for that. So we needed something that could also do that in our new tool. So what features do we really use? So we have, for each project, we have a team site. So we're a Teams Microsoft M365 client as well. So for each project, we create a team site, and that's kind of the artifact where we put documents and all that kind of good stuff. Communication occurs there as well. The interesting thing, though, is the team are integrated in with one plan. So you'll see this on a screenshot where you can get to the team site from the project in one plan. So you don't have to search through all your teams to figure out where the project site is. We also use Planner for selected projects, but in one plan itself, we have a details page, financials, capacity planning, the teams integration I talked about, Planner integration, status reports, process steps, and project requests. So I'm not going to labor on this. This is our methodology. This is the overlay, and then underneath the execution and planning, if we're doing hybrid, we can have the iterations occurring in that section. But this is part of the stuff we have in our knowledge articles on the web for everybody can go and look at and see how we do things. So this is a screenshot of one plan. So in this particular screenshot, in the upper right there, I got a view set up for Jennifer's projects. And this is one of the really, I think, powerful things about one plan is you can have views set up for almost whatever you want to see. You can filter, you can group, you can do all that kind of fun stuff. This column on the left over here is where you can see what team site is associated with each of those projects, and if there's a planner plan associated with those projects. If there's no planner plan, then the work plan is inside one plan itself. I find it a little clunky inside one plan, and so if a PM is doing it, it's fine. If we have external people who you want to update their own task and keep up to speed, one plan is, in my humble opinion, is not the best about that. This CIPs are our capital accounts, and you're probably all familiar with something similar. We call them CIPs. We have now an integration from our financial system into one plan, so we can see the CIP remaining budget on this screen. And so that's really nice for the PMs. They don't have to go to a separate system and look. You can see how much money we have in this particular CIP. This budget column here comes from the project managers. So we'll show you on the financial screens in a second that they go in and update that budget at the beginning of the project to say, here's what we think it's going to cost. And then they can track that as well. And then we talked about that. So project details page. So as mentioned before, we like to try to keep everything kind of in one spot as much as humanly possible. And this project detail page has the description of the project, the scope, the justification, the impact, deliverables, all that kind of good stuff. We also have a project complexity and risk score that is calculated when you enter certain values inside this one plan page. And that kind of drives us to whatever governance structure we want to use. And then we have the project financials. So on this screenshot up there in the upper right, the details tab I got highlighted there, that means I'm on the details page. And you can see all of this information here is all very configurable, right? So you can set up your own fields. You can say what I want to have on there. This is our process steps we have up here. And so when it goes from planning to execution, we have approval there where it goes to the PMO director, me, first. And then after me, I look at it, it goes up to the budget director and they look at it and approve it. And it doesn't get into the execution phase until both of us does that approval. And then just as a this detail page, again, you can make it look whatever you want to look like, but we have the project overviews, and then we also have the project financials down here where you can see the budget. You can also look at what the capital budget is. So it's 120 out of 220, it looks like, on this particular project. Down here, we have funding accounts. So our budget office uses this to see where's that funding coming from to load that CIP. And then over here, we have the CIP account information again, what the CIP number, original budget, encumbrances, actuals, and then the remaining. So this is, again, to keep from hopping from system to system. Here's the financials tab. So if we look back on here, so we have the financials tab, a resource plan, and a work plan. Just I don't show those on each of these slides. So this is the financials when you drill into this. So there we can track budget, forecast, actuals, benefits, and realization. So we're using benefits and realization. We have some projects running to support our strategic plan that is going out to 2031, and we're trying to realize savings. So we're actually, we have that realization thing in there, and that's where finance goes in and say, okay, IT said they were going to save this much money by revising the cell phone policy, and we actually saved that much money. So we're seeing that we're able to see that difference by using that. In this, we have this pre-configured set of items, and you can indicate whether they're CapEx or OpEx. We can indicate the funding source if we want to, the account number, the description of what those things in, and that all totals up to your project budget. The project budget is time phased, and this can be broken into months, or if you want to keep it at years to keep it high level, you could do either. But this is the time phased aspect of the budget. It's all in the same page inside of one plan. Resources, when you go into one plan, remember that the row of things at the top, another tab is the resource plan. So you build your resource plan for the project. So Jennifer, who's our project manager, built herself and how much time she's going to spend per month on this particular project. And James is one of our AV engineers. How much time is he going to spend on this particular project? But All this data then rolls up to our enterprise resource plan, which is what this looks like for the project managers. And so you can see we've been doing this for about a year. We're starting to roll that out to all of IT. Right now, I have the PMs coded to 0.8 FTE, so that other 20% they can use for other meetings, going to their restroom. Yes, we let them go to the restroom occasionally, having lunch, all that kind of good stuff. And then we also log our vacation time through one plan. A little bit of a long story, but I'll shorten it to say we didn't have the time or money at the time to implement our self-service module in Oracle Business Suite to let people go in and put their vacations in. So we were passing around Word docs via email for vacation. This tool had that capability. So we said, okay, let's record it we started in Project Online, and we carried that over one plan. And then that also has the benefit of decrementing someone's availability when they put their vacation in, and we have an interface built to interface it up to Oracle Business Suite. So again, people log it in here, and it flows up through Oracle Business Suite. Work types. So again, inside the one plan over here is a work type. So this is a schedule. So you can see this looks like your regular old Gantt looking schedule. There are comments. You can put comments on tasks. You can put comments at the project level. Again, it's nice. It's not the best, I don't think. Interesting here is this says show in, you can't read that, but show in reports. So if that's a yes or a no, that's a trigger for showing it in the status reports. And so maybe you want to show some milestones and maybe you don't, but depending on what's going on in the particular project. But that will come to light when I show you the status reports we're doing. In addition to the schedule work type, you also have backlog, risk, issues, change, and key decisions. You can build your own. So we've added changes and I think key decisions when we did our implementation. And then so that work type's there, a little drop down, you click it, and then you can go to risk. And then you will see the risk work types that we have for this particular project. Status reports. Status reports come out weekly. And what I mean by that is we want the PMs to send it out weekly, but the system also generates a new blank status report on a weekly basis. That's again configurable. So if you want to do it every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever the case may be, you can do that. It pulls the data from one plan. So instead of project manager typing up an email, sending it out as a status report, and then finding the email doesn't reflect what's in the tool, that's really irritating to me. And so by pulling the data from one plan for the status reports, it makes them, or maybe I should say, encourages them to update the tool so their status reports are current, which is nice. And so it pulls data from one plan, project health, task in progress, active issues and risks. You can select which milestones to show. You saw that on the previous slide. And then they have two fields for accomplishments and planned activities, which are kind of free-form text. So those are in one plan. And as the PM is going through their week, they can type stuff in and it kind of auto saves. And then when it comes status report time, those things are kind of locked once they submit them. And then you can start typing the next week's planned activities and stuff. And so that means we have historical status reports that we can go in and view the history of those status reports at any time. I know this next section is a bit of an eye chart, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So this is the basic project information. So description, the scope description, who's the PM is, who's the executive sponsor, basic stuff. This is what we talked about there, the accomplishments and planned activities and any additional comments. So these are free-form text the PM can fill out. And then here is more stuff it's pulling out of one plan. So the schedule health, the financial health, the resource health, those are all manually configured by the PM. They can put, if it goes anything that's on track, if it's off track or at risk, then these become required fields where they have to actually put in comments of why those things are off track. It's also counting up the number of issues, number of risks, and that sort of stuff. And then here are those milestones that you can show which milestones you want to show and which you don't want to show. So these are generated, again, you can't see it, but up here in the upper right, that's a status report for 5/15. If you do that little drop down next to it, you'll see all the historical status reports that are back there. So you can go back 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long the project's been there. and look at the previous status reports if you're so inclined. These also can be saved to PDF. So for our normal process is we save these to the team site just for the team members to look at it. Certain of our clients don't look at team sites, and so the project manager will understand that and then create a PDF and email those out to those certain VPs that need it in their mailbox, which we're happy to do. Cindy already kind of talked about this, but this is our Teams and Planner Premium integration. So we set up the Planner Premium site in Teams like you normally would. We have this timeline view, and then we integrate it in the one plan. So all these tasks come across, all the assignments come across, all the milestones come across, all the relationships come across, all that kind of stuff comes in the one plan. And then we can see the data for maybe the members. This is maybe a little bit better view, as kind of Cindy showed us earlier. And then, but the project managers can report on this stuff out of one plan like they report on native stuff in one plan. And then we all like the @mentions that are available in Planner and Teams. And so that's really a nice feature. One plan you can @mention people, but it doesn't do anything special yet. But I understand it's on their roadmap to make those more like Teams. So when you @mention somebody, they get the notification and doesn't spam everybody. So AI usage, talk a little bit about that. So Copilot, facilitator agent for meeting notes and documenting follow-up actions. This is probably the single biggest time saver that I have found with AI so far, just because I use it on all my meetings, and it puts those meeting notes in loop. Cindy kind of indicated that before. And then it also, then you have a page in loop. You can go back and look at all your meeting notes historically. If it's a reoccurring meeting, you just go back to the date of it happened. There are the notes, you can look at them. So that's really, really nice. We also use it for the more common stuff, drafting documentation, business cases, supporting project risk efforts. Interestingly, one plan, of course, has their own AI agent called Sophia. Planner has a new agent called Planner Agent. Unfortunately, Planner Agent can't read premium plans yet. I'm willing to bet it's on their roadmap, but not quite yet. But I don't know about you guys, but this is appraisal season for us. I'm doing appraisals for all the PMs. And so I went into one plan and asked Sophia to say, hey, I got to do my annual appraisals based on their project performance. Write a paragraph for all my PMs on how they're doing. And it did it. And then I wrote up my own comments in a Word doc. And now later this week, I'm going to give Copilot both of those documents and say, okay, smush these together and make a very eloquent appraisal that I can then edit and use for their performance appraisals. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Aiding creation and documentation, of course, during discovery phases, getting understanding of products and processes. That instead of web search, I'm using Copilot for that sort of stuff. And then we are not a enterprise customer, but Notebook LM, if you guys haven't tried that, that's really, really, really cool. Microsoft has a competing notebook, but it's not quite the same yet. But I wanted to give a presentation on the latest PMBOK and what it looks like to the PMs, because we have a meeting every other week to go over something that's relevant to all of us. And so I put the new PMBOK and a couple of YouTube or actually YouTube videos and something else in Notebook LM and say, give me a presentation. It created the PowerPoint presentation. It's really a PDF on top of PowerPoint slides, but it provided that presentation, and the graphics were phenomenal. I don't know, when you talk about PMBOK, they talked about the Sydney Opera House as being an example of, it was behind schedule, over budget, yada, 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 but yet it's, I don't know, one of the wonders of the world, highly esteemed, and therefore the value it provided exceeded or trumped all those other metrics, the classical metrics, right? Because of the value it provided. But so it had a picture of the Sydney Opera House, a graphical rendition of the Sydney Opera House on that PowerPoint slide. That's amazing stuff. Anyway, CoWork is another Copilot agent, and we're looking at that. One of the PMs was using it to analyze what they have done. So it says, look at my previous week and tell me what I've done, what I need to catch up on, what I missed, that sort of thing. So it's kind of scanning their email, scanning their calendars, scanning their teams chats and stuff, doing that sort of stuff. And we're also anxiously awaiting this planner agent for premium plans because they say it's going to be able to build your project schedule. So we'll see how that works. So I blazed through that, Ed. So left time for questions, I hope.
Yeah, yes, you did. And I did collect all the questions from the chat. And so the good news is there's only 143 questions we got to go through. So I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Let's just take them from the top then. First question came from Julie. I copied her question twice. She asked one question about data security, but I noticed Cindy and Julie were having a sidebar chat. So I just want to make sure that question, Julie, you felt got answered appropriately.
Yeah, I understood what she
Oh,
said. I think it's similar
perfect.
how we do it. Yep.
Okay. And so, Cindy, this is another question to you. Out of curiosity, does it, and by it, I think Julie's talking about your planner wall there. Does it do capacity planning?
It does do capacity planning. I regret that I didn't mention that or capture screenshots for my presentation, so I apologize for that. But Planner does allow you to do capacity tracking.
So when you say doing capacity, so we do capacity plan. We do a big spreadsheet. We take it from our reports, and these numbers get put into a high level report for like the leadership team. Does it do capacity planning like that, or were you just talking about maybe capacity planning on a project, like each project where you get a detail in? I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, so this is actually a very interesting question. So you can do a project by project, but then Planner has a feature called Portfolio, and you're able to upload several projects, a handful of projects, into a portfolio view and then take a look at your
Hmm.
timeline from that feature. And I can't remember if there's capacity tracking at that level. But that's something that I can look into and then maybe send you a note.
Oh yeah, you actually don't have to go through that level because we are using something else different right now. We're not looking to, we recently went to it within the last few years. So, but I mean, maybe down the road, if we look to go to something else, maybe I could just reach out to you then.
Feel free.
Yeah. Next question comes from Jason. He's curious about, and it's related to where Julie was going, how you report on projects or portfolios, including whether there are any visual dashboards for Planner or SharePoint that show, and I don't want to over-articulate Jason's question. I'm going to attempt to summarize this a bit. You have visual dashboards that show project reports at the portfolio level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One feature that I neglected to tell you is the report feature. It's
Mhm.
one of the last tabs in that screenshot that I did show you. Actually, let me bring it up. Do I have time to bring it up really quickly?
You do. I'm calling out time. We're at 12:41. We wrap up around 1 o'clock. So we got some time. And we've only got, instead of 143 questions, we only have like 3 or 4 more.
Oh, you scared me about that. Um,
Just I've always wanted to say that.
so really quickly, one of the features here is that I think there's a planner, not planner premium. So let me pivot to planner premium. Let's see. Oops.
So is
Yeah.
it Planner Premium that has this extra reporting and portfolio features that you're
It
talking
does.
about? Okay.
I'm sorry to be,
Yep.
yeah, the Planner Premium is the one that has that reporting capability that is necessary for project work. Let me take a look at an old project that I have. So you'll see a lot of red, which means I'm not slacking in my job. It's just a project that has been completed. And um, this is the capacity piece of it, Julie. And then here you can run project review status, and then this is the reporting piece of it. You can report, you know, within a time frame, and then it also has that co-pilot feature that allows you to customize your report to see what you can come up with, which is fantastic. I've been tinkering with it. And then I'm just opening up an old report again, any red. It gives you a lovely executive summary, some nice visuals. Here we have a pie chart, summary about the project, its timeline, and whatnot. And it also identifies any issues. Does that answer your question, Jason? And what is lovely about this is that you can post this on a SharePoint site. So there's a feature here that allows you to send that report over into your SharePoint communication site.
Yeah,
Or you can
yeah,
send it as an email.
definitely answers my question. We have Planner as an available option institutionally, but haven't fully adapted it for the PMO. So that's really cool to see what we can, if people buy that enhanced license, what they can do with it.
I didn't realize there was that enhanced license, and it looks like they've improved it since the last time I was using Planner to manage projects. Interesting. I saw that you tracked dependencies. This question's coming from me. I saw that you tracked dependencies in Planner, and that was a field in like the list view. When you put in those dependencies, does that do anything to adjust due dates, or is it just a value that you're tracking?
That's one of the things that I did in my training way in the beginning. If you're
Mhm.
using dependencies, and then be aware that if you adjust this timeline, it moves everything else, which we don't
Okay.
want. So I actually have guidance on how to handle that. Basically, give yourself a 2-day buffer so that you don't mess up the other days, or undo the dependency, make your adjustment, and then put that dependency back on. So I have a loop page that provides guidance on how to adjust your dependencies without breaking everything.
And that was the rules link that we saw when you're going, is like, be sure to follow the rules. You're documenting those guidelines. Okay. I didn't realize Planner had dependencies. Because that was my one knock against it. You could create all these awesome cards, but the problem with that is some of those tasks, those cards will depend on other tasks. Kind of cool. All right. Um, I'm moving on to some questions for Dan, and then I do see some additional questions coming in to chat, so I'll hit those after we ask these questions of Dan. Think this is from Julie, and I think it was directed at Dan. It was right when you guys transitioned, so I may be asking the wrong person. But Dan, when you say Teams site, do you mean Microsoft Teams? I think the
Yeah,
answer was yes. I
yeah,
saw the Teams on
yeah,
later. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, so you can create the team site from one plan, and it will generate the team site for you with the same name as the project, and then show that little icon in the left-hand column on one of my
Okay,
slides.
cool.
Do you
Yeah.
find it hard to manage? Like, because I think we have Teams, we use Teams, but it's separately, and we use Zoom and stuff like that. And I find that some of the team sites, they're hard to manage. Like when you have a whole bunch of them, I guess. And that's what I was curious. Do you find that hard to manage?
I've done it for so long. I don't think I find it hard to manage that, but I guess what I'm talking about, I'm talking and trying to share at the same time. So this is our live environment. So if I go to this icon right here, I can open that particular team site from one plan. So I don't have to search through my whole list of teams to find the one for this particular project.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, thanks.
You bet. And the same with Planner. I can open my Planner site from this thing as well.
And then this is two comments from the chat that I'm pulling together, and I turned into a question, just to be completely honest. So you had made a comment that you had 102 projects for your PMO, and your PMO is staffed by 5 people. So you do the math, that's about 20 projects per PM. So are all those projects PMO managed? Okay.
Yeah.
So then the second part of this comment is someone noticed in the chat that you were protecting your resources by resourcing them only at 80%. So as you resource everyone only at 80%, you're still able to manage those 20 projects per PM.
Yeah, I mean, like most things in life, there are trade-offs. They
Okay.
manage it to, depending on the project, right? They kind of manage to the level they need to for that particular project. They may only, for the schedule, they may only have milestones, high-level milestones, if it's a simple project, they're just tracking it. Or it's more one of the students' success initiatives we're working with, putting on a CRM in Slate, and that is managed in a very agile-like thing in planners synced up to one plan. So that's a lot more detail on that one. So yeah, it's obviously too many, but you got to do what you got to do.
Understood. Yeah.
And that count is those in initiation, those in planning, those in execution, and those in closure. So closure, they're still doing a little work. After closure, it's financial closure, and I didn't count those. Those are all just like the history.
So what's happening then, make sure I understand, or to clarify, is that because they're managing so many, they may not be able to manage at the depth that you would normally expect a project manager. So that they're okay.
Yeah, exactly. And the process steps I'm talking about, planning, they're doing some obviously planning work. Execution, they're doing that. In closure, they're collecting invoices and turning over to ops and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's
Gotcha.
a lot less work, right?
All right. Keep an eye on time. We got about 11 minutes to go, and now I'm focusing on the additional questions in chat. So let's see here. Another question from Julie. It's when you use AI for team members review, do you go back and confirm the data is accurate? Do you have a process to confirm this? It's a multi-part question, so you may want to look at the chat. I was just wondering because it's someone's review,
Yeah.
and if AI misspoke, okay, I see what she's saying.
Yeah, of course, right? AI gets me away from the blank piece of paper to start, and then I edit that document, whatever it is, to make sure it's accurate, for sure.
I do the same thing.
Yep. And I know I'm asking you guys questions, and at the same time, I'm going to call your attention to the chat. So maybe after we finish the last question, you can poke around the chat. But we started an interesting question. You started talking about managing the budget. So I just threw a question into the community saying how many university college PMs manage the actual budget. And there's some interesting responses there to sift through if you're interested in like aggregate data. An unofficial poll, if you will. Next question is, do you use either platforms to track IT roadmaps? And that could be whoever wants to answer that question.
Well, can they define roadmap, maybe?
Jennifer, go ahead and speak up.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Hi, Dan. I was thinking in terms of for a given portfolio or program, as you're looking at initiatives that turn into projects over the course of 1 to 3, maybe 5 years, do you have a way of looking at that as you're then moving ahead and looking at your capacity, and then once those projects actually come to fruition?
Maybe. So I'm admin, so I see all this stuff. So under the ITS portfolio, we have our ITS program, which is all the cats and dogs IT projects. We have our network program where we're doing network upgrades. And then we have a security program where we're doing security implementations. But over here in the project requests, and then I'm going to go to the ITS backlog. So these have not turned into projects yet, but these are what was approved by UPIC, that committee for fiscal 27. And these others are fiscal 27 that we know about so far that are lined up. So that's sort of a roadmap. It's a kind of a short horizon roadmap. We do have one down here in fiscal 28 for SimLab for dental school, I guess, to start looking at that. So that's probably the best I got right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You bet.
I can, if I may, so we use Planner Premium for project portfolio tracking, and we track our work at a mandatory, level, and then discretionary. And then we also have a prioritization process, especially for the discretionary section. And we currently have 15 active projects sitting in the discretionary bucket, and those are placed in priority order so that library IT staff, the resources devoted to the work, know which ones that they need to focus on first over the next one. So it's really effective. And it gives me the opportunity to say, hey, I need you to focus on this project, not this project. It's really successful in our area. And I also have a program, a project program. I struggle with what to call it because it was given to me as a project, but there are many different pieces of work associated with what they call project and I call program. And I think many of you know what I mean by that because you can't just project by project. So I created it as a program and I created a planner board to track all of the project, all of the work, whether it's a statement of work or an actual project, or something that is a maintenance work, but it needs to be encompassed in that program. So I track that at the program level. And then again, you also have that portfolio
Very
where you
cool.
can.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. There's one more question from Alex in here. It is a little lengthy. It's a good question, but so you might want to be in chat. That's the point I'm going for here, but I'll read it out loud. In the environment that has the teams and the planner in the same ecosystem, is there a mechanism that puts the second one into play? And if we need more clarification, Alex, did you want to speak up to that question?
No, sure. Yeah, I can. Basically, what I'm asking is, I'm just trying to wrap my head around. I see that you have one planner that's working as like maybe the central tool, and I was just wondering if there's like a mechanism that says, oh, I need to add planner into this project as a secondary tool to help out, and whether that was done during the initiation of the project, where you just start day one, you have planner and one plan both working together, or if it was something that happens like as you're working through the project and you go, oh, I need to do this like as the project is in execution.
Yeah, we would want to do that as early as we could, because you don't want to change how you're doing things midstream because it tends to confuse people and makes them angry. So typically during execution or planning, we would figure out who the customer is and how much we're going to have to interact with them on the tasks themselves, if they're going to be updating their own task and all that kind of stuff. And if we're going to be interacting with them a lot and they're outside of IT, then that kind of drives us toward planner, integrated in with one plan. Is that what you're asking, I think?
Yes, thank you.
You bet.
Did you want to hear? Okay, I'll stop.
And were you going to demo something? We do have like 4 minutes left. Do need to get to this wrap up. Okay, you're cool, Cindy. All right. Just a reminder then, first, before I get into this, because I tend to be focused on the next slide, I definitely want to take the time to thank both Cindy and Dan for putting together the presentation. Work goes into that, as we all know, those of us that have given presentations, and I definitely appreciate them being willing to stand up and present presentations. And if you have something that you're interested in, look at all those claps. That's awesome. If you have something that you're interested in presenting, it can be a topic that you're just passionate about or something you're, like I said, interested in. You don't have to set the bar at the level Dan and Cindy did. Doesn't have to be a conference grade presentation, can just be a topic, can be a question you introduced. I mean, the sky's the limit here for this community. I'm a firm believer that the community that talks together, discusses together, stays together. So that's one of the things I've been trying to promote in my tenure at the PMCG. That said, reminder, summer break coming up in July. Our next meeting is June 17th. The topic is intake and governance, workflows, and capacity. It's a very popular topic. We cover this multiple times a year, and for good reason. Our presenters are Yvonne and Adam. And I should also say that last comment feels a little weird announcing something about myself, but because of the I'm gonna call it the officer cycle because I don't have a good phrase for this. And I'm not rehearsed on this piece, but this would be my June would be my last meeting as lead chair. We have term limits, and so I have run the course of my term limit, and so it's time for me to decrease so that others can increase. So this is my chance to say I want to thank you guys for all that you do as a community and for letting me stand up here and say all the silly things that I say when I facilitate these meetings. So, there's that. Fall meeting, August 18th. Don't know that we have a topic yet. We've got some ideas of brewing, but more details on that later. It is now 2 minutes till 1, and so I'm feeling very generous. I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes back because it really wasn't my time to give in the first place. You guys have a great day. Hope the week finds you some success in all of your projects and initiatives.
Thanks all.
Thank you.